From Red Bull being fined $7 million for cheating in the 2021 season, to McLaren being fined a whopping $100 million for stealing Ferrari's technology. F1 teams have been fined for the stupidest reasons. So, let's talk about that, shall we? Starting with Ferrari in 2010. Back in 2010, Ferrari was given a hefty fine of $100,000 for imposing team orders on Felipe Massa to give victory to Fernando Alonso. This affected the outcome of the 2010 German Grand Prix. Massa had been leading the race when his race engineer radioed in and said, "Felipe, Fernando is faster than you. Do you understand?" So Massa yielded the position to Alonso behind him.
Fernando is faster than you.
Fernando Alonso goes past or through and into the lead.
Good lad, just stick with him now. Sorry.
This doesn't sound so bad now, does it? Because it's not. It's just team orders.
Tell us about this overtake. Did you decide to let Fernando pass?
Yes. We're working for the team and the team orders. We didn't have team orders in the race. I was struggling on the hard tires, and that's is the direction.
So Fernando was faster than you?
Yeah, I think everybody saw, no?
But here's the thing, back then, team orders were strictly illegal. However, let's be real, the fine was kinda stupid. First, the amount was nothing for a team like Ferrari. Second, team orders were made legal the year after anyway. But if you think this fine was stupid, wait till you hear the next one. The US F1 case. Ring a bell? Don't worry if it doesn't, because this team never made it to Formula One. This team was granted entry into the sport in 2010, but it failed to enter because it breached sporting regulations and the International Sporting Code. So the team went into liquidation before ever getting the chance to race, and FIA themselves became one of its creditors after imposing a $370,000 fine on the team. But why did the FIA impose a fine? Well, first, as I mentioned, the team had breached some rules. Secondly, this fine was imposed to cover the FIA's costs for the disciplinary procedure. The next team is the team with the most controversial history, Racing Point. The team that was turned into the current Aston Martin outfit was slapped with a $473,000 fine. This happened because Renault protested against the brake ducts of Racing Point's car. As it turned out, the brake ducts were a copy of the Mercedes W10's brake ducts. And while intellectual property theft is a problem, it turns out that Racing Point had bought Mercedes' brake ducts for the 2019 season when it was permitted. And while the team didn't do anything super wrong, it did kind of manipulate the rules. And because of that, a fine was imposed. And then the team was fined again in 2022, but this time the team was fined as Aston Martin, and this time the team was fined a $450,000 tab. To be honest, this was one of the stupidest reasons to slap a fine on someone, because the team didn't do anything wrong. Aston Martin had a procedural breach. That's it, because the FIA itself stated that there was no proof that the team obtained any undue advantages as a result of this breach. Nonetheless, the team was fined, and it really didn't make any sense. But hey, it's owned by Lawrence Stroll, so the amount is pocket change for the guy. Alright, let's talk about F1's most controversial team again, Ferrari. Back in 2002, Scuderia was slapped with a whopping $1 million fine. This happened because at the Austrian Grand Prix, the Ferrari drivers, Rubens and Michael Schumacher, swapped places at the end of the race. This ensured that Michael won the race. Rubens was all set to win the race, but he eased off the throttle. This is something that he was told to do by the Ferrari boss at the time. Back then though, team orders weren't exactly illegal, but they were frowned upon. However, that's not why the team was fined. The team was fined because of how the podium ceremony played out. Because Schumacher was so embarrassed by what had happened, he let Rubens get on the top step. Everyone disliked this move so much that even the Austrian chancellor didn't acknowledge Schumacher. Instead, he gave the trophy to Rubens.
Hard one. I mean, at the end of the day, as I was saying, for all the points, at the end of the day, when Jean Todt came over the radio.
And the German press wasn't nice to the 7-time world champion either. Interestingly though, as I mentioned before, it was a $1 million fine, yes. But each of the three parties, Rubens, Michael, and Ferrari, were fined $1 million each. So far, all the fines that we've talked about have been fines for the teams or the drivers. But have you ever heard of Grand Prix organizers getting fined? Because that's exactly what happened to the Turkish Grand Prix organizers in 2006. And just like the fine fine I just talked about. This fine was slapped because of podium politics. But hey, this was a $5 million fine, which isn't exactly a lot for organizers, but still. Okay, here's what happened. Felipe Massa won the 2006 race for Ferrari. His trophy was handed to him by the Turkish Cypriot leader, Mehmet Al-Talat. However, on TV, he was introduced as the president of the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. The Cypriot community in Greece did not appreciate this, and neither the FIA president liked what had happened, because it breached the sport's stance on political neutrality. And all of this really wasn't a joke. The World Motorsport Council summoned Turkey's sporting authority. Eventually, they talked it out and fined the organizers $5 million. The organizers had no choice but to accept the fine, because if they didn't, the Turkish Grand Prix would have ceased to exist. The next fine on the list might as well be the stupidest, because it was all a slap on the wrist for Red Bull. In 2022, Red Bull was fined $7 million for breaching the $140 million spending limit. This happened because the team incorrectly adjusted the cost. These costs included catering services, employers' social security contributions, clerical errors, certain travel costs, and costs of maintenance. Only God knows what kind of 7-course meals the Red Bull squad was having to spend all that money. The team was slapped with a $7 million fine, the second largest in F1's history. It also had to accept a 10% reduction in wind tunnel development time for 2023. Let's hope the Austrian squad learns their lesson.
Look up, Charles Leclerc goes through ahead. Verstappen on the inside. Patience gonna pay off here because Verstappen has got Charles Leclerc can't cover him off. Verstappen, he takes victory at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.
This brings us to the last fine on the list. And honestly, I can't believe this team did what it did, because it ruined its reputation to the point where it's failed to be as glorious as it used to be at one point. I'm talking about McLaren. Back in 2007, the Joaquin-based squad was fined a whopping $100 million. This is because of Spygate. Spygate became the most talked about thing in F1 at the time, after a McLaren employee was found to possess a detailed document that had every little technical detail about Ferrari's 2007 car. And you won't freaking believe how that employee got caught. The employee's wife was going to a photocopy shop in the United Kingdom with the document, and the employee at the store noticed that something was odd, so he contacted Ferrari's factory in Maranello. When the investigation began, it turned out that Mike Hoffman, a McLaren employee, and Nigel Stepney, a former Ferrari employee, were heavily involved in the scandal. To be fair to McLaren, an internal investigation found that the squad didn't do anything wrong, but the team did admit that certain other members of their team had full access to Ferrari's details for the 2007 car. The McLaren drivers were still allowed to contest for the 2007 championship, but McLaren could not contest the Constructors' Cup, and since they weren't doing that, the team also couldn't get any proceeds that it would have gotten after the season ended. And with no money coming in, and with $100 million going out, McLaren was hit extremely hard. And since then, the team hasn't been able to recover. And with that, folks, these were the stupidest fines in F1 history. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.